Hello, dear friends. Let's type plus signs if you can see and hear us. Welcome to the space of the first step. We know your intention, we have received your letters, we have read the forms you filled in, and I consider that the most important and natural aspect of the development of a human is his health and longevity. These very parameters are the yardstick to measure his spiritual development. In this very understanding and this very mode we can evolve. And we do not need these religious prejudices that tell us that we need to die to achieve well-being, and that the body is some prison for the soul. These mental distortions should be disposed of, and we need to ask ourselves, what is it that my soul wants? What for is it here after all? Even if you have some goal, you need to keep it in mind to reach it. But to make your path to it, you should be here, taking conscious steps to achieve that goal. Same thing with the flute, it teaches that. We all talk about gods, about different layers of life, and true, there are these realms of gods, but let's ask the question, who is God after all? What do we mean by that term? In my understanding, God is the higher consciousness in a body, in a living organism. It's the only way God can declare himself. There is the pure absolute that contains all that is, in which yes and no coexist, questions and answers unseparated. All in a still substance, not moving, not doing anything, has absolute knowledge and its complete emptiness and complete fullness at the same time. And to be receiving information from there, and to interact with it, and to identify it, you need to be born into life. God is a living being that is aware of himself, of the creation, and of his place in the fractal world, and takes the responsibility for the system below it in the hierarchic scale. It is a fractal structure. For example, I am a god on this earth. I will explain it now. If the word God isn't comfortable for you, replace it with the word chief. I'm the chief, the god, the boss, whatever the word for thousands of billions of living organized cells that I consist of. And look, this leads us to something interesting. If you, each one of you, doesn't take responsibility for your inner world, you are the God for your cells, for the microorganisms that live in you. It is a whole universe, an incredible universe. So if you do not take the responsibility for it, and you have destructive processes happening inside which are only your responsibility, then the God, the consciousness higher than you in the hierarchical system, I can even name him. His name is Nature, planet Earth. Our world is a fractal, and that fact allows us to get all sorts of knowledge, starting from the cell and up to the solar system, and find out how all that works. It's very simple. If you want to find out how life came to be, find out how a new cell gets born, because our planet is also a cell of a larger organism, and it's time to understand that there is nothing complicated in that. Have you ever seen a cell on a picture? A cell of a human body, or whoever, of a eukaryote. What does it consist of? It has a nucleus, and it has organelles which perform certain functions inside. One provides for energy, another cleans, and so on. And if we take a cell, and we take our planet, we will see that our planet also has functions, just on a larger scale. For example, if in the cell the mitochondrion organelle provides for the energy, the planet has more complex systems, or better said, just larger systems that do the same thing, simply the scale is larger. For example, the flora, fauna, the biosphere, the ocean, and other elements that are here to maintain life. And same things are happening in the cell on a microscale. So our cell is covered by a membrane, even some membranes. One of it holds the fluid, and the other isolates. It consists of fats. This membrane is there to sustain life, because it is on the border between the charge of the cell and its surroundings, like a positive and negative charge, and that allows the interaction with the other cells to happen. Our Earth also has a membrane. This has to do with the question, is it flat or round? Think about it. We are offered to choose. Either it is flat or it is round. I can tell you that there are dozens of round Earth concepts. Which one do you mean for me to choose? And which flat Earth concept are you implying? Our planet is a sphere on the surface of which we live. Inside the planet there is a nucleus, magma. It is neither solid nor liquid, it is the primary substance, energy. So it gets information from higher hierarchical levels, and it makes minerals from which life would be made. So the code, the DNA of our planet is magma, as it is with the nucleus and DNA with similar functions in the cell. So the first membrane of our planet is the atmosphere, then the stratosphere, and then the cosmic layer. So the cosmos is also a membrane. We cannot get outside of it. It is impossible. We can spend days in cosmos, but physically we cannot escape it. It can be done only in other ways, by means of technologies that we don't have. But you cannot leave the membrane by any natural means, because this planet produces us inside the membrane, because it has an informational diagram that we exist, information about our existence. And that information is only inside that membrane. Our planet has 5 realms of consciousness. A realm of consciousness is a field of evolving beings moving towards the realm we are in and further. So the first realm is that of minerals. And every realm has its limitations. For example, what can minerals do? They can react to heat and cold, nothing more. The next realm, by certain ways which are known to science now, minerals turn into bacterium. This realm includes plants and microorganisms, eukaryotes, archaea, and so on. That's the next realm, and it's again the next stage of evolution. The mineral has evolved into a bacteria, a plant. The plant accumulates information. It accumulates information, and it also has its limitations. It can turn towards the sun and close if it rains. So just 2 or 3 functions. The next level is turning into animals. And now imagine the following. The animal realm is that of instinct, where a being learns the ability to adapt to life's changing circumstances. Because our gentlemen scientists tend to forget an important thing when they touch on evolution. First, the evolution never stops. While we have volcanoes and while the minerals constantly get renewed, and you can see that. Hydrogen's characteristics are changing, right? So it's in a constant cycle. So what does that tell us? Our ancestors have vanished, and that didn't stop anything. We came back. Our ancestors were different beings. They robbed the planet. Who left us all those mines? We lived the same way, we have fallen the same way and crashed the same way. And we changed into a different species. And as the axis of the planet is constantly changing, the plants and animals need to move towards where it's warmer. Moreover, they adapt to different conditions, and that develops their consciousness. And further, when they acquire intellect, these beings are ready to pass into a human form. If a human form has just left the animal form to become a human, he is more instinct-oriented. You can barely say that they even have an intellect. So the next stage is the human form, where we have developed instincts and are developing intellect. And these instinct-oriented people are completely materialistic. It's impossible to have a reasonable conversation with them. The interesting thing is that after the instinctive realm of consciousness goes the intellectual, to which all animals pass. So here's a really interesting thing. What is intellect? It is a sphere of consciousness that asks questions, searches for solutions, and finds them. And between the question and the answer, time shows up. The intellect can only perceive the world in a dualistic way. That's why intuitive information doesn't make its way to the intellect. That's why it needs to be chewed up for people, formed intellectuals, and thus get conveyed to them. People will need proof. They will need to consider it, and that's the intellect. And we are being persuaded by our rulers and the system that intellect is the highest realm of consciousness. And we give our children right away to school to educate them. What education? Because our intellect is dualistic, it uses this property to create artificial realms of intellect. For example, if you ask a person, "Who are you?" he can answer, "I'm a Muslim," or "I'm a Christian." These are all realms of intellect. "I'm a Russian," "I'm a Romanian," "I'm a painter," "I'm a producer." So they identify themselves with artificial concepts. And either they realize it or not, the ruler's task is to divert an individual from passing the stage of intellect and going on to the next stage, which is the highest for this planet, which is intuition. Because you can get there only when the intellect finishes its activity. And to do that, it needs to be pulled out of these artificial realms of consciousness. I'm a pilot, I'm an officer, I'm this and that. I am an evolving human. We are all born with an equal potential of being gods in our lives, from our first life. And what does that mean, to be God? It means to realize the part you play in forming your reality and to take responsibility for the lower system in the hierarchy, which are the cells. If the body is in the utilization process, it is corrupting. If the food it takes and the thoughts contribute to these processes, this kind of human can only conduct the information that is available for his stage of development. As for our I, the sense of self is given to us for the only purpose to give us the aspiration to develop. If we wouldn't have it, and outside of life we do not, this sense of self is what serves as the reason to live, because in other states There is no I, and it is the best gift life has given us. Self-identification. Everybody wants to identify himself.
Пусть свет проникнет в его душу, и благодать твоя в наш дом вернется.
Прости, мать.
In my past, I tried to be a person of light, the shanti kind, you know? And I always tried, though I never really succeeded in that, to suppress my aggression, anger, this devil in me, the one that wanted to make movies. And that part of me, the light side, doesn't want to do any movies. It doesn't need anything at all. It doesn't care. But that guy, it wants to develop the self. It wants to get the better of Tarantino, Spielberg. He has these sorts of ambitions. I used to suppress that stuff. But then I realized that it was my partner. That's my kind of thing. I love it. And I started loving it. In any way it displays itself. Sometimes it would behave like a swine, but I love it. I don't bully him anymore. I tell it, you will be the most famous producer, and he says, yes, yes, yes. Where were you before? And I started making things. When I was saying, I want to enlighten the planet, I was on my own. He wasn't there with me at all. But it's him who does the movies. He's the one who curses the light technician, which has messed up. He decides who to talk to and how, because you need to communicate there.
Мастер, дай мне знаний. Я хочу быть таким, как ты.
There is no God and devil in nature. There is one being that includes the earthly aspect of existence. Its tasks, all levels, even the lowest, and the light aspect of consciousness, the supreme one. And to develop that light aspect, by no means should you fight the dark one. Because when you start fighting, you aren't the light aspect anymore.
Ինչպես ռեժիսորն է նշել հարցազրույցներից մեկում, փոքրիկ վիշապ ֆիլմը չի պատմում արևմուտքի ամերիկյան արժեքների մասին.
Имею большое желание, чтобы молодежь наша, чтобы ориентировалась на то,
I have a great wish to see the youth understanding that a healthy body and spirit are the best things a human can have, the most important. Period. Everything else is irrelevant. It is unimportant. We are symbiotic organisms. A person, take me for example, I cannot live better by being more separated from the others, however hard I can try, because we are symbiotes. Why, when someone starts doing some health practices like becoming a raw eater or whatever, he starts yelling, "Follow me, don't eat meat." Why? Because this is an innate need to move on. But you cannot go away, you are symbiotic. We all are. Nobody will be opening to follow his purpose, to become a human, unless there are symbiotes. I understand yoga only the way Shiva gave it. Only that way. I don't accept any other variations. Yoga is given to achieve integrity. Integrity, healing, is our mind, our higher selves, our mind, and our body. If you look at yoga as a means of working out your spine and joints, that's perfect, but what then? Do we only have our inner organs? What about our cells? I believe the work with our body and spirit should start from the cell, not from the joints, dear yogis. From the cell. That's what Shiva taught. We passed from one realm of consciousness to another very easily when we were not yet humans. So the minerals turned into archaea, archaea turned into eukaryotes, they turned into plants, and plants turned into animals, and different species of animals started moving towards gaining intellect and evolved into humans. If we wouldn't have these artificial realms of intelligence, we would quickly have gone through this stage. We have lost a lot of time. We should have been ready for the transition long ago, but unfortunately, not everyone would be able to accomplish it. Now, who starts to get awakened starts to improve himself, his health, at least if he hasn't arrived to that, he is on his way, he will arrive. Through the hospital, through the reanimation, through an accident, through the crashing down of the bank system, through catastrophes, through anything. Anything will bring a person to the point where he will have to choose. Either you go decomposing to compost, either you evolve. If only you stop for a moment and ask yourself a question, a simple one. For example, what do you want from your life, from your body? I want to live, I want to be young. Okay, you want to be young and healthy, right? Everybody would say yes. And now I want that person to explain in some language, scientific, microbiological, or whichever, to explain. He wants to live, and he stuffs himself with this food. And this particular kind of food he stuffs himself with makes a part of himself. Does it serve that purpose of life and health? You take, for example, a rotten apple. Does it look nice? Or withered spinach from a supermarket. Does it look nice and healthy? No, it doesn't. A healthy thing is a bundle of firm standing spinach or a good shining apple full of life right from the tree. Now that's life. That's health. That's what it gives you. Isn't that simple? Natural healing can happen on any level, including the level of the lineage. And it happens in such a way that memories start coming up, that we are connected with our lineage. We are one, truth be spoken. If my grandmother had a mission she unfortunately did not accomplish by not keeping to the laws of nature, that went on to the next generation, and that's why we have it now. And we also have to perform this function that our lineage was meant to perform. Imagine that consciousness wants to manifest life. How do you think? Will it suffice with my 2 eyes to manifest this life in its full extent, or my 2 ears, or my nose? I think life is given to every being simultaneously in its spectrum. There is another variant when children of higher consciousness come. They are teachers. When they come, they are very demanding. And when you take the responsibility, they start demanding certain things from you. So the child about to come chooses the mother, the womb he or she will be living in, how clean is her body and her consciousness. It is really important for those children that come to this planet for the purposes of creation.
Все мы ищем свои корни, но находим всего лишь ветви. Ветви произрастают из ствола, ствол произрастает из корней, корни произрастают из семени. А семя находится в твоем сердце. Так говорил мне мой дедушка.
Но внутри семьи мы научились проживать.
In our family, we learn to live through our offenses and to laugh right. And in this, we have the evolution of our relationship, where every conflict is a transformation. We let each other be ourselves, absolutely. The stronger a man is, the more young energy he has, the more he is self-sufficient. He doesn't need to prove himself worthy to his woman. And before, I did not understand this. I behaved myself differently. If you do not let her woman be free, let her shout at you, so what? It's your woman. She's doing that only for you. To display the self at home, well, I think there are lots of places better for doing that. And it's also important for a woman to behave differently. Right, a woman should have respect. A woman ought to be gentle, tender, caring, quiet, obedient, but she can also be wild and rebellious, a passionate warrior. They say that we feed our organism with subtle energies when we evolve into creativity, when we are in love, and when we are asleep. Love is actually expanding, it's the energy of expansion, so to speak, and it really contributes to the evolution, the development of a human. If to speak about our love, it's like a game, like being born into two beings at the same time. And I don't mean only the man and woman bodies, but you feel yourself in every being, feel your presence everywhere. I just want to say, don't listen to what we tell you. Get to know nature, get to know yourselves. You are nature, that's what's important.